Hey, what's going on? You living your life? You living it to the fullest? Today I'm going to talk about finding purpose at 40 years old, or finding purpose in your 40s, the search for meaning in the second half of your life. What you can get out of this video is, why does it matter? Why does it matter? Why does meaning matter in the second half of your life? And what are some things that you can do? So at the end of this video, I'm going to leave you some questions you can ask yourself to take an inventory of your unlived life and the potential to find meaning in the second half of your life. So let me just jump in and start at the very beginning, the start of your life. So the very first half of your life, what is it about? It's about building up your external world. So building up your education, building up your finances, building up your family, building up your job, building up your ego. The first half of your life is building what you think or what you've been taught culturally to do. So whatever your parents or whatever your family, whatever your friends consider to be successful or a good life, that's what you spend the first half of your life doing. You basically, the first half of your life is living up to other people's expectations of you. So when you think about the first half of your life, basically the first half of your life is pleasing people. You're just out here appeasing culture, appeasing your peers, your friends, your family, school, society, what they expect of you. Basically the first half of your life is conformity, conforming to what people think you should do. And that's pretty much most people. When you think about life and you think about what you do or what you're meant to do, a lot of the times we're just, rather than focus on what we truly care about, what we're truly passionate about, and what truly gives us energy, we just do what's expected of us. Until we get to a point in our lives, where, usually it's around your 40s, where all the accomplishments in the world don't mean anything. And that jumps us into, all the accomplishments don't mean anything. So the money doesn't matter as much, the cars don't matter as much, the big houses don't matter as much. The external validation doesn't matter anymore. So what you end up doing is you end up trying to find more meaning in life. And that's where you start to take an inventory of what you haven't done in your life. So a lot of times what happens for people at midlife is they find that they're unhappy because they're doing something that they didn't want to do that doesn't bring any meaning. So they think that they can trade in the wife for a new younger version or new model or new trophy. Or you can buy a brand new car and that's going to bring you meaning, or you can get a bigger house and that's going to bring you meaning. Or you could, get a big job or a big promotion and that's going to bring you meaning. And then you find out none of it gives you any meaning. And you find yourself questioning your very existence. Like, what are you here for? And then that leads you into the second part of your life. And the second part of your life is really about discovering who you are and finding what your natural talents are. Every single person on the planet has an inventory of abandoned talents or abandoned dreams or abandoned skill set, something that we haven't fully tried to explore or to develop. In the second half of life, that's basically where you're going to find the meaning in life, is where you start to take an inventory of, what didn't you do that you really thought you could have done well at, or what didn't you do that you felt you abandoned because you had all these other responsibilities. So this is where in the second half of your life you start to take an inventory, because you realize the old patterns don't work. All the things you used to do don't work. You know, like the old song, you know, the drugs don't work, they just make it worse off. And it's like the old patterns don't work, they just make it worse off. So going out with your buddies for a beer doesn't work, you know. Going, you know, all the old thrills that used to love aren't working anymore. The old things you used to fall into aren't working anymore. So then you need to start asking yourself some questions. You need to start taking an inventory of what does bring you meaning. So when you think about your life. Now I want to start, here's one of the first questions I want you to ask yourself when you start thinking about your life. So if you had to title the story of your life, what would it be? Right now, if you had to make a title, what would it be? So think about that. And think about that title. And ask yourself, does that title make you happy? Or does it bring you joy? Do you feel like you've lived up to your full potential? Or maybe do you think there's opportunity or room to grow? Maybe there's an opportunity to build up that title. So you need to ask yourself, what would I title the story of my life? That's the first thing I would ask myself. Second thing I would ask myself, or another thing I would ask myself is, when did I have a crossroads in my life where I could have chosen one path versus the other path? What path did I choose? And what path do I think maybe I wish I would have chosen? So for example, for me, I had a crossroads in my life, a major crossroads in my life when I was about 19 or 20. I had two options. First was if I could get a job in Toronto, Canada, I would move to Toronto and I would start my life there. If I couldn't get a job in Toronto, Canada, then my other option was I got my TESOL, which is Teaching English as a Second Language. And my other option was if I couldn't get to Toronto, then I was going to go and teach English in Brazil. Bingo, bango, bongo. I got a job in Toronto and I lived there for the last 20 years. Con permiso. So when I think back on my life, what would my life have been if I would have taken that path to Brazil and I would have learned how to teach English as a second language? Where would my life be right now? So that's a question. So as you can see right now, I'm traveling. I think part of my unlived life has been my love for traveling. I haven't traveled as much as I would like to. And I could see myself doing that now. Now, it doesn't mean living your unlived life, doesn't mean physically doing it. There's so many ways you can do it. But that's an example for me where I had a crossroads in my life. And I went one way. And what would my life have been if I would have went the other way? So think about, so I want you to think about that. Think about a time you had a crossroads, and then what was that like? What's one more thing I want you to think about? Another question you can ask yourself. Another thing I would ask myself is, when have you experienced a major loss in your life? A major setback or a major loss? What was it? How did it affect your journey? And when I think about, a lot of people have similarities. And, you'll see when you go through the course of a lifetime, you'll see there's similarities between people's losses. It could be the loss of a parent, could be a major divorce, maybe the loss of a loved one or a relationship that you really cherished. Think about how those affected the outcome of your life. And go back and see how did that potentially change the direction of where you went. Because you'll find that throughout the course of a day or throughout the course of every day, you have decisions you have to make to maintain whatever life you're maintaining. So wherever you are in your life, you are there because of the decisions that you make every single day consistently. And I think that's a major hindrance to people, is that we don't realize that it's not just one major choice that you make in your life. If you want to change your life, if you want to develop or you want to do something with your life, it's a series of the choices you need to consistently make every single day. Another question I want you to ask yourself is, what talents did you have that you left undeveloped? Was there any talents that you had in your life that you think, man, if I would have just spent a little bit more time doing this, maybe my life would be different right now? So I want you to ponder those questions. And when you start pondering these questions, it's going to start to help you identify what are some of the things that maybe you want to start to develop right now. What are some things you want to do right now that can help you right now at 40? Finding purpose at 40, really what it comes down to is finding the things that you left behind, that you felt you could have done really well at, that you've left undeveloped, and you start working at them now. Because in the second half of your life, for the most part, most people have already had their kids, and a lot of them, the kids have grown up. And I understand that having kids is a major accomplishment, but at the same time, they have to see their parents turn into themselves. And we'll talk a little bit about how the unlived life of a parent can negatively impact the children as well. We won't go there today. But I want you to contemplate these thoughts. Think about some of the undeveloped talents that you did, okay? And what are we gonna do about it? What can you do about it? And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a series of videos here in which I'm discussing how you can go about living your unlived life. Go back this way. Because there's nothing worse than you'll find in your life. There's nothing, when you talk to somebody that is at the end of their life, and you're gonna hear a lot of similar things on the person's deathbed, which is the woulda, coulda, shoulda. I wish I would have done that. I wish I could have done that. I wish I should have done that. And you don't want to wait until some terrible thing happens to you, till you get sick, or a bad accident occurs to you, or it's just too late to do anything, to start doing something about finding meaning in your life. You have to act now. Otherwise, you might wake up one day and wonder what the hell happened to your life. So this is very important. And you need to take a real proper inventory, an honest inventory of your life, of the missed opportunities. What are some of the opportunities when you look back in your life? What are some of the things that you felt were missed opportunities? Why were they missed opportunities? How can you now turn them into opportunities? Maybe you had the chance to start a business, but at the time you had a family and you wanted the security of working for a major company, for a major corporation, and you had an opportunity to start a business with a friend, and now you've seen your friend and they've had a lot of success and you wish you would have done that. Well, then this is the opportunity to do it. Right now. Why wait? Look at this. Pretty cool, eh? So as I'm on my journey, one of the missed opportunities I had was I wanted to be a Much Music VJ, you know, talking to camera and interviewing people and traveling the world and talking to rock stars. But now here I am, rediscovering in one of my past lives or one of my unlived portions of my life, and now I've got this YouTube channel that I've started. I'm traveling the world, and I'm working on piecing together the second half of my life with meaning. So you can do it too. So this is the first of many. This is the first of a series of talks on how we can go about finding purpose in our 40s, and how the second half of your life is about finding meaning in your life. And you can see me, I'm a walking, living example of it. I'm out here doing it as well. And it's not about, the second half of life isn't about, it's not about the outside stuff, it's about the inside. It's about internal meaning. And you think about, when you think about the difference between like a worldly feeling or like a soul feeling. So like a soul feeling is when you see it, when you're in a beautiful park, or you see a beautiful sunset, or you're doing work that you love to do. Like for me, I love doing these videos, so I have a really good feeling. I love to paint, so when I paint, I get a soul feeling, because I'm finding internal meaning when I do these things. When I play music, it's an internal thing. It gives me just a joy, a continuous joy, and I don't need any applause for it. So how do we find those soul feelings, those beautiful sunsets, those beautiful walks in the parks, the work that you love to do, whatever that may be? You got to find those soul feelings versus the worldly feelings. A worldly feeling is, you know, how you feel when you win a race. You know, like that's an outside feeling. Like, yes, I won a race. Or how you feel when you get a big bonus at work. Or how you feel when somebody gives you applause for saying a funny joke or something. Worldly feelings are the feelings that are kind of brought on from the outside world. So what we need to talk about is, how do we find those deep, meaningful soul feelings? And the best way to do that is to find meaningful work and to find what you're passionate about. And you do that by taking an honest inventory. So I'm gonna leave it at that today, but I'm gonna do a series of these videos. This is the very first one. And we're gonna be jumping into searching for purpose in your 40s, or finding purpose in your 40s, the search for meaning in the second half of your life. This is gonna be a series of talks. I'm Matt Ross, I'm the Known Wolf.